For the longest of times, Assassin's Creed fans have been asking for a game set in feudal Japan, and with the upcoming release of Assassin's Creed Shadows, we finally have one. And I thought it would be a good idea to come up with a quick list of things that I would love to see in Shadows. I did something similar to this for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I'm also very excited for here on the channel, so if you're excited for that game as well, I recommend checking that video out. But without further ado, here are 5 things that I would like to see in Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, number 1 on the list is for Yasuke and Naoe, the 2 protagonists, to actually feel different to one another gameplay-wise. So, as most of you will know, Assassin's Creed Shadows is being developed by Ubisoft Quebec, who previously made Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And if you've played Syndicate, then you'll know that they have already tried doing the whole dual protagonist thing in an Assassin's Creed game. But the thing is, it didn't really work out all that well. Jacob was meant to be the loud and brash one, and Evie was meant to be the quiet and stealthy one. But they both ended up playing very similarly to each other. Apart from a few minor differences, their animations and gameplay was largely the same, which resulted in many players simply picking who they preferred. Now here in Shadows, Yasuke and Naoe, they kind of fit similar roles to Jacob and Evie. One is the loud and brash one, and one is the quiet and stealthy one. And I just really hope that in Assassin's Creed Shadows, they avoid making this mistake and make a stronger effort to differentiate the 2 characters. Some ways they could do this is by having maybe certain gear or weapons, abilities, and like upgrades only unlockable for certain characters. Possibly even having entirely different skill trees for the 2 of them. This would also result in more gameplay variety. Being able to choose which character to play as and planning out different strategies for each character is a very interesting choice that the player would have to make, assuming that the 2 of them actually feel different. Judging by the trailer we've seen and some like background information and knowledge through like interviews and stuff, it is looking like they will play differently to one another, but like I said, Syndicate made this same mistake, so I'm hoping that they don't make it again. Number 2 on my list is actually for the story to be more linear. The latest entry in the series, Mirage, had a story that was quite non-linear. You had a series of targets that you had to kill, but you could kill them in any order you wanted and do the main story arcs in whatever order you preferred. This is a form of storytelling that Ubisoft does quite a lot, not only with other AC games, but with Far Cry as well, for example. And I personally find this method of storytelling to be not nearly as effective as a traditional linear story. Because each story arc is meant to be understood and digestible in any order, it results in a less connective story and each arc feeling separated from the greater story at hand. I really hope that for AC Shadows, they don't follow this method of storytelling, or at the very least, make more of an effort to have each arc be more relevant and connected to the greater plot at hand. Also, having a more linear story could help in developing both Yasuke and Naoe. If you are simply able to choose between the 2 for whichever mission you wanted, then it would result in neither of them getting the right character moments and development that they deserve. I personally believe that Valhalla has one of, if not the weakest story in the franchise, and Mirage also doesn't have the strongest of stories. It's probably down there with Valhalla. And what these 2 games have in common is that they follow this form of storytelling, where there are many arcs for you to complete, but you can do them in any order. And this resulted in not only a weaker story, but also less memorable main and side characters. And I fear that if this is the path that Shadows takes, then it will suffer the same fate. Number 3 on my list is going to be a more prominent modern day. So many people love to hate on the modern day sections of Assassin's Creed, and I don't know why, because anyone who's actually played the original games and loves them knows that the modern day is an integral part to the core experience and identity of the series. And seeing as AC Mirage had absolutely no modern day, I would love to actually have a new modern day plot be interesting and important again. This could even be the beginning of a whole new arc. At first, we had Desmond, which, in my opinion, had a somewhat anticlimactic ending, and then Layla, which had plenty of ridiculous ups and downs that didn't really go anywhere, until Valhalla, where she actually had kind of a decent ending. But I think it's time that we have a new modern-day protagonist that actually has a well-planned-out story. Desmond at first did have a planned out story, and it started off really strongly, but it was rushed and it didn't really reach its full potential. And Delewa just straight up did not have a planned out story at all. I would love to see the modern day plot actually be planned out from start to finish this time around, with a likable protagonist and even a well-made, modern day antagonist even. There's so much potential in Assassin's Creed modern day plots, and I believe that Ubisoft has never properly realized that potential in the entirety of the franchise, and this could finally be a chance to get it right. Alright, number 4 on my list, some people might not like, but it's for the RPG mechanics and the loot system to come back, but not be too overbearing, and that's a key thing I want to highlight there, because I think Odyssey had some really great RPG mechanics, but the gear game was way too overbearing and just had way too much to deal with. I was spending way too much time in my inventory dismantling stuff and all that. Valhalla responded to this criticism by almost completely gutting the gear game, resulting in boring loot. And Mirage had pretty much no loot or gear at all, but Mirage handled that in a way that was a lot more boring than the older AC games. I only hope that this game has RPG mechanics that are handled well. Something closer to AC Origins, for example. I would still like some interesting loot and gear to collect, but not to the point of exhaustion like in Odyssey. Progression is a big part of any video game, and having an interesting and fun loot game with good RPG mechanics can make for some great progression. I know a lot of people hated Odyssey, but we all know this is going to be an RPG game, and I think the strongest quality about Odyssey is that it fully leaned into that RPG framework, for better or for worse. And I think that if Shadows is going to be an RPG, then it should go all out, not trying to sit on the edge, trying to please both the old and the new fans at the same time like Valhalla attempted to do. Having strong loot and gear is also a great way of encouraging your players to actually go out and do the side content and quests in the world. I spent plenty of time in Odyssey going out and hunting gear sets and weapons. That was a lot of fun, and I miss having that in the RPG Creed games, and I really hope that Shadows improves on Odyssey's gear game without cutting it or stepping back from it entirely. And lastly, at number 5, I have the return of back and side ejects. In my opinion, one of the best parts about the parkour of the earlier Assassin's Creed games was the fact that you could eject off walls to the back and to the side completely unrestricted. In Mirage, there are ejects somewhat, but they are butchered and unrecognizable compared to the ejects that we had in the earlier games. Even in a game like Unity, side ejects didn't have a dedicated button and would only happen contextually. I would love to see the return of non-contextual back and side ejects, as I believe that it does wonders for the movement, fluidity, and freedom of the parkour. Movement is ultimately what makes Assassin's Creed so special as a franchise. You can find other games out there with good stories, good combat, and good stealth, even other games that have really strong Japanese settings like Ghost of Tsushima, for example. But what's a lot harder to find is a good parkour system, especially in a large open world game such as this. I believe that if Shadows ends up having good or even great parkour, it would be a massive step forward not only for this game, but for the franchise as a whole. So there you have it. Those are my 5 things that I would like to see in Assassin's Creed Shadows. All I hope for this game is that it turns out well. I've been looking forward to it for a while, and I can't wait for it to be released so I can play it and review it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below and reply with anything else that you would like to see. Let me know 5 things you would like to see in Assassin's Creed Shadows. But yeah, that's all I have. So yeah, thank you for watching.